Welcome, guys, back to Mobile London. Thank you for the continued support. I hope everyone's obviously well. I'm here today with Giorgos, the VP of Engineering at Tide. For the guys who don't know, obviously, about yourself, give us a brief introduction.
Hello, everyone. Like Tom said, my name is Giorgos. I'm from Greece. I live in UK now, and I'm the VP of Engineering at Tide, but also the Global Director for the Client Technology. So I'm looking after all the clients, iOS, Android, and web. We have quite a few. I've been with Tide for three and a half years, where I joined them as a lead iOS engineer and slowly progressed to higher up the ranks. If you don't know who Tide is a fintech scale-up based in London, and we are a business banking platform. We provide business banking accounts for small and medium enterprises.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, yourself, you're at this sort of VP of engineering level at the moment, but you've obviously had a software background, mainly within iOS. Obviously, you went to university, but I know we spoke before, but you didn't start with iOS, did you? So what sort of things did you start with?
No. When I started as a software engineer, I was an ActionScript developer. I learned ActionScript. It was ActionScript 2 at the time. Few months later, ActionScript 3 came out, so I started focusing on 3. Did lots of Flex work, lots of Air work, Adobe Air work. And then that's probably for 6 years. And then Steve Jobs decided to kill my profession and I have to do something else. So I surprisingly chose iOS and Android at that time. I chose mobile basically. And I started working with iOS and Android, always native. I did try every single cross-platform framework in the market at that time, and I was disappointed. So I focused on native. And then a few years later, I just focused on iOS because at that time, as a developer, it was always the best experience. And that's where I focused the last probably 9 years on iOS.
Yeah, and obviously that has been sort of your extensive background. Obviously with iOS, I'm assuming you started out with Objective-C, moved on to Swift. With the companies that you'd worked in, have you worked for like various different companies, haven't you, from sort of startups to a bit more established?
Yeah, so I worked with, my first startup actually was in 2009 as a Flex developer. It was a startup, but it was an ad agency at the same time. So it was a company within a company. I have worked for big ad agencies, working with one worldwide in Athens, very big, and many other startups since then. And I have been like a contractor, consultant, permanent employee, not a lead, being a lead. I have done many from different positions and in different type of companies as well. I have to say that I do prefer product-oriented companies. I like to have the focus on a single product or on a variety of products, but being product-oriented, not the consultancy type of companies anymore.
Okay, so you prefer, obviously, like you said, there being a bit more product focused. And with yourself, obviously, I know you've obviously worked in permanent positions and contracting positions as well. What sort of drew you to contracting at the time? Was it just to sort of work on different projects, or what sort of drew you around to that? Was it the opportunities?
So a couple of times I went back into contracting, probably from necessity because I wanted to do something and I wanted to try something. So, but they were both it wasn't very successful. The one was in Greece during the crisis, so starting your own. I had my own business, small business. It wasn't very successful, so there was no clients basically. So how can you be successful if you don't have clients? Because the contracting market is different in Greece. In UK, it was different. It was just a phase where I was looking for my next permanent role. So I really like being a permanent employee, I guess, because that's where you get the commitment and also the opportunities as well. I'm not going to hide it. Being a contractor is very, it's a different thing. I'm not going to say good or bad because there's no good or bad, but for me, for some reason, I had the door open for both things. I was welcoming both things. It always came in as the permanent was always more attractive. at that time.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. And obviously, you like you mentioned there, you worked in Greece and the UK. So you're obviously working in the UK, went back to Greece and came back. But so what sort of drew you to go back to Greece? So you started doing iOS there, and what made you come back then? What sort of?
So yeah, oh, it had nothing. The decision to move had nothing to do with my job. So I lived in UK for 7 years, from 2003 to 2010. At that time, me and my now wife were a bit fed up with UK, and we wanted to go back to Greece. I think I was probably the last one to set foot in Greece just before the crisis, just before IMF comes in and says that we are bankrupt. And so I wasn't very lucky then. But I had a job, so I wasn't really affected by the crisis. But the progress was affected, like my progress was affected. So after staying for 7 years in Greece, I decided to come back to UK because, there was unfinished business, let's say, with UK. So
Okay.
I needed to.
Yeah. And,
I mean, look,
yeah.
London is. I didn't come back to UK. I came back to London. London is my second home now after all these years. So it's, I will always be it will always be part of me, and I will probably keep coming back to it in the future.
Yeah, that's good. And I think you're like we spoke before. You had an idea, didn't you, when you were to come back to London? You had a plan. You obviously knew what you were looking for at the time.
Yeah. So in 2016, I had a good job actually in leading the technology in ad organization, in another ad agency, boutique agency. But we wanted to move back to UK, so I had to make a plan, because this is how I operate. I operate with plans. I don't.
Yeah.
Everything I do is very calculated. I don't do like a very impulsive decisions. So I planned my return to UK, and I had a focus and an aim to find exactly the job I actually ended up finding, like in a fintech, in a lead position, iOS, in a promising and well-funded company, which was Tide. So either fintech or health tech, ended up being in a fintech. So, after a short stint in another company, I ended up with Tide. So, very quickly.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. And like you say, obviously you've been there since. When you first joined, you were obviously the lead iOS developer. Did you and you were obviously leading your previous role, but how did you find the transition to the company in London? Was it much different? Obviously, did you have a bigger team, smaller team?
No, I had probably the same size of team, but I had, like I said, I had a previous a small. I passed like for 3 months from another company, from Channel 4 basically, for a company that was contract for Channel 4. Luckily for me, not for them, they lost the contract with Channel 4, so I left before my probation finishes, because everybody will leave at some point, and I joined Tide. Now at Tide, the team was small, but it was very challenging to begin with, because it was very scattered. So there was a couple of people in UK, the rest was contractors in Ukraine, and the project was a mess. So, it was a bit challenging to begin with, and that's probably the one thing, if I had to take out of all the last 3.5 years, is the transition of the team, how it transformed from non-existent team to a team of 16, 17 people, very strong in-house across 3 offices. So, and then times 3, because I've done the same thing for Android and for web. So that's probably my biggest achievement on Tide. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, interesting. And like you said, there obviously you guys communicate with multiple different offices in a lot of different countries. And obviously from the lead position there, it eventually progressed on, didn't it, to obviously head of mobile. Was that much of a transition for yourself, or was it just less hands-on? How did you find that?
So when I joined Tide, I was a bit overwhelmed, because I had to basically do everything and be really 100% hands-on, and that lasted for 6 months. And that's when I said to the CTO at that time that this is not helping, because I'm actually taking time out of, I can't manage a team being 100% hands-on and being focused in a project. So I stepped back a bit. I still maintained to be the hands-on, but not on 100%, not 100%. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was January 2018. The Android team had some issues. There was no lead for the Android team. So the CTO and CPO at that time asked me to look after the Android team because I had made a really good impact on the iOS team. So he asked me to look after the Android team and the web team. And 5 months later, he offered me the head of mobile and web role, because I mean, to be honest, I did manage to transform a bit the Android team, normalize the release cycle, introduce quite a few practices. I managed to bring them together because it was completely different. iOS and Android, they wouldn't even talk to each other. So that's how I transitioned. It wasn't sudden. It was probably I acted as a head of mobile for a few months before already.
Okay.
This is probably, that's going to be my advice to anyone, like keep taking things that you don't know how to do necessarily, because this is how you're going to prove that you can do the job. Don't wait for things
So
to
be
happen.
be proactive about it. If you've been given that opportunity, take that on. Okay.
Yeah.
And that obviously sounds like it definitely worked for yourself. I'm sure that was a much different role from being the senior developer that you were before, the fully hands-on developer. And then how about that? How totally was that fully hands-off then, your head of mobile role? Or was it
So as a head of mobile, I wasn't 100% hands-off. So that's the perk of being a head of mobile and web, is that you get to choose what you want to do in terms of coding. So my team always complains that I don't want to let go some things, and I still do stuff like technical stuff for them, especially for iOS. But the truth is that you have to let go. If you want to be a good lead, a good manager, you have to let go. Not technology. You have to let go of the hands-on stuff and trust others. So and that's where the decision is very tricky, because some people don't really want to let go. They just want a promotion, but that's not how it goes. You have to let go, and you have to learn how to delegate as well. The technical stuff. It's not, you can't do everything.
Yeah, I bet, like you say, that you have to let go, and you sort of have to take. That's the only way you're ever going to learn these new opportunities and fully sort of develop into that new role.
Look, you don't have an infinite amount of time, right? So if you keep focusing on the same things that you focused before, you'll never grow in other areas. And being a lead, and especially a tech lead, is quite different. You have to invest a lot of yourself, not only on others. And it's not technical stuff that you have to invest necessarily, but also technical, because you're still a tech lead. You still have to follow technology. So if you ask me what I'm doing, like how I'm growing myself, I actually still have to do technical courses because I still need to learn, right? I can't just manage something that I don't understand. I have to understand what I'm managing.
Yeah, so I'm guessing, it's still learning for anyone. It's constant learning, which is always good. And then obviously after the head of mobile role, you're now at your position now, so the VP of engineering. And how is that? Is that, so you very minimal hands-on now, or like you said, you get involved with the iOS side of things?
Yeah. So obviously now I'm hands off. I mean, I don't have the time to do anything on. But the good thing is I have a really strong team, and I have delegated almost everything technical. So I mean, my role has changed. It's not the same like last year. I'm dealing with budgets and strategy, plans, planning, team planning, hiring, all that boring stuff. Nothing fancy here.
But like you say, obviously, you sort of went up them ranks, so that's the only natural order of it all. The longer you do say, you progress and you start moving up. But yeah, like you said, do you still keep obviously up to date with iOS? Do you have personal things that you work on? Do you still sort of toy around with the latest tech? What?
Yeah. So now currently I'm actually trying Swift UI myself.
Nice.
But we also are evaluating Flutter. Which is if you don't know, it's a cross-platform tool from Google, because we are trying it out. So I'm actually reading about it as well. I mean, I'm not gonna probably use them, to be honest, besides a side project, which I don't have time to do anyway. But it's definitely good to keep. Otherwise, I'll be like probably very bored.
Yeah, what are your obviously thoughts on Flutter? Obviously, I had a talk from Teresa, who's obviously the Android lead. She did a talk on Flutter before at Mobile London. So, what's sort of your idea of Flutter? What have you sort of?
So I'm going to start with something else. It's not my idea about Flutter. It's how I approach technology, and I have been a very dogmatic and very close-minded engineer, where I was, focusing on Flash, ActionScript, didn't want to do anything else. I was doing many other things at the time, but my focus was on ActionScript and Flash and everything, and that didn't work well. Like obviously, like I said, so I realized very early that you have to be a polyglot. You have to be open in technology, because technology is not going to be there forever. It changes, right? Whatever you choose now probably is going to be obsolete in a few years. So Flutter is just another thing, a new kid on the block, and we are looking at it. It's not going to be the last one for sure.
No.
And we're just testing stuff. We like to test things and see how it goes. If you ask me about Flutter more specifically, I'll say that it's probably the first time I've seen a cross-platform. Like I said, I've tested every single thing.
Yes.
That's out there. There's a big disappointment, including React Native. I don't really. I mean, it depends on the company, of course, right? And the product.
Okay.
I wouldn't use them myself unless I had to do an MVP or something. But Flutter is actually the one that's probably promising a lot. And if I was an Android, especially Android engineer, I will pay really, really attention to what Google is doing now, because there might be some different some changes in the upcoming years.
Yeah.
But also, even for iOS, having said that, even for iOS, but having said that, Apple is doing like a really nice job of keeping the engineers interested. So it'd be hard to convince somebody not to do Swift UI and focus on Flutter. Very hard. I can tell you by experience, very hard to convince them. And it's not about convincing. Technology is just a tool, right? You just need to find the right one for your job.
Yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned, obviously everything's changing. So obviously a lot of people have to keep up to date with the latest things. We obviously have all the releases. Yeah. It's good, especially in mobile. Like you say, I think we recently obviously had WWDC on iOS, which happened, I think it was probably last month. But a lot of tech is constantly updating and keeping going. Obviously, you mentioned as well, obviously in your role, you've obviously had to do with hiring and things like that. Obviously, we've had a lot of, one of these talks that I've had, we've had a lot more maybe junior guys or mid guys looking for roles. Any sort of tips that you would give people when going into sort of interviews or anything like that? Any tips that you would give mobile developers, or like to make a portfolio, or if they haven't got that commercial experience yet where they've come out of university, or anything you would say?
So so I'll tell you how I hire, right? We don't hire for skills. I don't hire for skills necessarily. We do look for skills, certain skills, but we hire for character. And I was recently in an argument on LinkedIn, good argument on LinkedIn about culture fit. And I do think that culture fit, doesn't necessarily mean that we're looking for people who are same as us, right? But we do look for people who have the same values. And if you ask me my values, I have written them down because I wanted to mention them. I have main 3 values. One is a value, and 2 others are behaviors. The first one is you need to have integrity. If I see somebody in an interview that, if I see any red flag with integrity and ethics, that's probably going to be a very big red flag. And the other one, the 2 behaviors I probably say is constant learning. I need to see on an interview that, you are hungry. If I don't see that somebody's hungry, then it doesn't matter the level, right? And actually that's more obvious on the seniors and advanced seniors. You see them like a bit stale, and they're not really interested in evolving. And I have quite a few examples of this. That's another red flag. And the third one is, that is a question actually in my interview, like about comfort zone. If you really like your comfort zone, then probably you're not gonna like working with me, because I really want to challenge. I really challenge myself and others, like outside of comfort zone. That's where we get really creative, but within reason. Like I don't want to push people doing uncomfortable things. First of all, I don't want to push people doing anything that I wouldn't do myself. So the tips is be transparent, be open with what you know. Don't pretend that you don't know things, that you know things that you don't know, because chances are that somebody will pick them up, especially if you've done like 500 interviews in like a year. You probably do have the ability to pick these things up really easily. And punctuality, like, but that goes with integrity. Like, be punctual on what you deliver, like on what you say. Be consistent.
Yeah.
Don't flake on your
Yeah.
questions, like on your answers.
Yeah,
Like,
beat around the bush with it. Don't go straight. Obviously, a straight answer is always best, rather than sort of, if you don't know something, obviously going with that.
humility, I would probably say that's a very obvious, like humility. Like, nobody likes somebody being arrogant in an interview. I had a case a few months back, and I actually needed somebody like him in the team. I didn't hire him because he has zero humility. Like, he was very arrogant in the interview. He was actually very disrespectful to my other team members who were participating in the interview. So, there was no chance for me hiring him. And I think that's
Yeah,
probably
you
what.
can't have someone. Yeah,
No.
you can't have someone like that stirring it up. Yeah. No, that's fine.
You should also hint these things, right? You should be open as well. From my side, I mean, I wouldn't go to an interview if I see any signs of, because the interview is a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
They both go to they both interview, both sides interviewing one another. So I wouldn't join a company who was not, if I see any red flags.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree with that. But yeah, no, I thought it'd be good to ask you that, where obviously you're sort of the other end of the career side, where I spoke to a lot of juniors, and I'm sure a lot of guys who listen to this and probably were sort of thinking if you had any tips and things like that, because obviously, like you've obviously explained, you've progressed your career through a varied of different roles. I think you obviously said before, obviously you weren't always pushing for that role, but you were always trying to learn and take on new things, and sort of took things as they came. You weren't like chasing.
So I didn't chase the role, but I always had a natural. I was leaning always towards the leadership part. It's something that interests me, like from very early. So maybe that's why I ended up there, because I was inclined by it. I was attracted by it, not necessarily by leading people. By managing people, but actually by leading people. I like being at the front. I like staying at the front. But not necessarily be the one taking decisions. And if you ask my team, I'm hopefully that they will say yes, that I'm not the one taking decisions. Most of the decisions are taken by the team for the team.
Yeah.
I just maintain like a 20% veto sometimes, like, because I'm accountable. But usually it's the team who takes decisions. It's not me. I do encourage a flat hierarchy in that sense.
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, look, Giorgos, I really appreciate you taking the time out today to sort of speak to me, explain obviously your ups and downs in your career, how you've obviously progressed your things. I think this is obviously very interesting for the guys to hear all different perspectives, and especially your side. So thank you very much for your time today. And yeah, obviously I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.